Hello, my name is Peter Steedman. Welcome to this YouTube channel of Spirit and Psychic Insights. I am a professional medium, a psychic and spiritual development teacher. I'm a psychic energy surgeon and also just an intuitive healer. I've been doing this for over 30 years. Professionally, I love doing it. But here's a question for you. Do you ever wonder whether you have a guardian angel looks after you? You see, I've always thought I had, always knew I had, in fact, since I was young. But here's a clip I'd like to show you where there's an extraordinary video of someone whose life was saved because it wasn't their time by divine intervention. And I'd like you then to listen to the interview with a lovely lady called Evie, who will also share her story of how a guardian angel saved her life. Enjoy. This was taken in 2012, CCTV, nighttime. Coming towards us, you will see there is a van with lights, and from the left, there is a man on a bike, comes right out, certain death, but just before he hits, a figure comes out and moves the man on his bike over to that crossing. The driver of the van comes out looking for the body. The accident, there's none there, and the figure, the guardian angel, just walks away casually, while the man who was on the bike is now just sitting down in a state of shock, wondering what the heck has happened. Amazing was that? I've watched that so many times. I just keep rewinding it. It's just amazing. And it just shows you as well that it wasn't that person's time to go. But anyway, I want you now to just enjoy this next interview with Evie and to listen to her stories of how her life was also saved by an extraordinary experience and divine intervention that she had some years ago. So thank you for joining us on this video and this interview, and thank you, Evie, for coming along. Evie's come to share some amazing stories that she's had from her personal experience of psychic and spiritual experiences which have changed her life, opened her mind, and given her incredible insights and inspiration too. Thank you for joining us, Evie. Can you introduce yourself to those who are listening, please?
Yep, so I'm Evie. I'm a single mum of 2 boys and I'm a full-time childminder in the local area. And I'm just sharing my stories with you, really. I've been sort of doing spiritual work since I was 4. I'm now 30 plus 8.
Wonderful, thank you. So go for it. Tell us your stories.
Well, my first story was when I was pregnant with my first son. So he's now 14, so we're going back some. I had awful indigestion, sickness all throughout the day. So anyway, I laid down on the sofa for a mid-afternoon nana nap and, trying not to be sick, fell asleep. I suddenly woke up feeling I was choking. Obviously, I had, just vomited in my mouth a bit, and I just couldn't move for the sheer weight of being pregnant and my weight. And the sofa was a sucky-in sofa. And I just felt 2 what would be hands on me, one on my thigh, one just up on my shoulder, a bit like a first aid remover. And I just got pulled onto the floor where I landed on my fronts like a cat. And, I could clear my airways. And I can't explain who that was or, I know that that was spirits watching over me who saved my life that day. If they hadn't have done that, I would have choked. There was nobody else in the house. I was completely on my own. And, I had to just deal with it, really.
So were those hands solid, tangible hands, or was it just a feeling of something that was strong enough to move you?
Oh, they were really strong, really, really gentle, but had to be extremely strong to shift an elephant off the sofa. I felt pressure. I couldn't feel like individual fingers as such. There was pressure on me, like, someone was touching me. It wasn't like a rope, where it'd be thin. It was a pressure point.
So for you, what did you gain from that experience?
Oh, they saved my life. So you can't really, that's what they did that day. And I think it was just magical, really, to me, to know that, you know, that wasn't my time to go. It wasn't, I now believe through that everybody has a time and a place when it's their time to go home as such. And that day, my son had to come into the world that year. And, you know, obviously I have to be alive to do that. So, you know, we just had to be alive, and I needed help that day, and someone was watching over me, whether it was a guide, an angel, a family member, I still do not know. But if they hadn't have been there watching me that, you know, that day or a few days, maybe a few months, I don't know, if they hadn't have done what they had did, I possibly wouldn't be here now to, you know, and to share the story as well. You know, it's nice to be able to share that, you know, during probably what could be a very scary time for some women, that, you know, you are being watched and nurtured from the other side.
I think as well that it's been really important for, as you share the story, that there are so many other women who realize that maybe they've had help and they weren't quite sure when it was coming in. But what other amazing experiences have you had that you can share with us as well, Evie?
Oh, I've had some amazing experiences. So then as a teenager, doing, you know, maybe what teenagers shouldn't really do, out for a night with your friends, having a few, you know, orange juices. I walked up through town after, you know, being clubbing, had my chips in my hand. I did what I always did, toddled behind my friends in my high heels, saw somebody, you know, homeless in, normally in shop windows, they generally sleep down through Bath. I'd always hand them my food on the way up. Something I'd always done every Saturday night, solid for 2 years. We were very committed. We never missed a Saturday. And at this particular time, did the same thing, walking up, being a teenager, spotted someone on the floor, very good looking young man. He was, you know, beautiful. Gave him my chips. He said, thank you. And I think he might have gone to say something else, but I had to catch my friends up. We had this rule that nobody was ever left behind, being a bunch of girls. So I just sort of toddled on off. About, you know, 3 or 4 steps, I thought, I'm going to turn around. I just couldn't get over how beautiful he was. And as I turned around, gone, vanished, chips and all. Just, there was no sign of this person in this doorway. And there's no way he could be out of view because the street is just one dead long street. I would have seen him walking. You know, he had a lot of things with him, you know, like homeless people do. Vanished. Never, haven't seen him since, didn't see him before. And, you know, being, you know, an avid socialite, shall we say, I had, you know, I remember the faces of people that I would share my food with most Saturday evenings, and I don't remember his face from previous, and I haven't seen it ever again.
How did that leave you? What were you thinking? Was that an experience which inspired you, or was it a comfort to you? Did it leave you intrigued? What happened?
Well, as the years have gone on, I've learned that, to me, someone taught me it could be a grounded angel. And as the years have gone on, I've always remembered this person, always thought upon him, that I think perhaps it was a thank you, or, you know, my kindness was being recognised. That, you know, a lot of teenagers, I was about 14, you know, a lot of 14-year-olds wouldn't, you know, think of sharing their food, or think of me, you know, some do, I'm sure, but a lot probably are quite selfish, aren't they, teenagers, let's face it. They were just bombed up the road and not thought twice about it. So it was just kind of, now I'm older, it's kind of like your kindness is recognised. And I think that's what I've taken from it, is I was really privileged enough to see an angel, a being, a soul, that not a lot of people get to see these things, and I did, and to me that was a reward within itself, I think.
Sounds extraordinary, and a beautiful experience to have when you were so young, which
Yeah.
made you aware that there was other things going on or was around you when you needed to have that inspiration and insight as well for everything that was going on. So tell me and share some of those other amazing stories you've had, because you have had a lot. You could write a book.
I might start doing podcasts. The other week I was awoken, I couldn't even tell you what time it was dark, by what I could just describe as a great big black bird just squawking at me at the end of the bed, as huge as a man. And I'd been watching Vikings at the time, so I had it in my head I'd been visited by Odin. So that was a moment. But anyway, I emailed you in the morning, obviously, like, what on earth? You know, this big energy of squawking bird in my bedroom at silly o'clock. And then in the morning, once I've gotten over the situation, I've gone to the bathroom to do what a girl's got to do, and I have lots of like pots with base clays in and quite a few natural products all piled up in glass jars. And I just sort of looked, and everything was upside down. So I've gone to my children. What on earth have you been doing? They both swear it wasn't them. And to be honest, you know, I know they can be a nuisance, but I don't think they'd have the time or the bother to turn all these jars and all these even soaps turned upside down. And I had a flannel folded up on top of one of the pots that was literally on the lid but upside down. The precision of everything, my children wouldn't have had patience to make sure these things were precisely how they were, but flipped up. So that was just, it was just crazy. But as you know, on conversations we had, I'm one of those people where subtle doesn't work with me. If you're going to do something, it has to be really big and noticeable, because I'm not very good at listening. And obviously you explained to me that this was a guide coming through, and he liked to come through and make a show. And that's, you know, that night he made a really big show, and I noticed. And for the last couple of weeks I've been working with him, and he has been an amazing grounding earthly energy, which is exactly what I needed.
It's certainly got your attention. I think it's good for people to know who may have experiences they can't explain, that there may well be just their guide or a guide coming to get their attention, to give them some help they need at that time. And what better way of doing it to physically get your attention, not just thinking it was a dream. Thank you for that. What else have you got from your book of stories that you can share with us?
My catalogue, I've got the one I call The Voice. This was an interesting one. I used to be a military wife, and some of our houses were, you know, very old and rickety and falling apart, need I say. I was on my own this particular time, and for about a week I was led in bed late at night, and I could hear keys jangling around and someone crying, like a lady crying, and I just thought to myself, oh, it's a drunk military wife, she can't get in her door, you know, got herself in a state crying. So this went on a couple of nights, and just thought, this can't be right. It's just bizarre. Anyway, this was at a time when we had box TVs. So in the old-fashioned way, I had to lean over the back of the TV, not get stuck, switch it on, and typical spiritual timing. So this lady rattling keys and this voice crying as I'm upside down putting the TV on. And at this point, my patience had kind of gone a little bit of, you know, it's a drunk wife, to, what is this? Right, you have to stop now. This is terrifying. I've stood up, and the voice has actually spoke back to me. Shocked me within itself. And she cried, and she goes, I just want Max. I'm like, who's Max? So I was actually thinking that to myself, who's Max? And of course, the voice replied, like, she heard me. She said, you know, it's my baby. I want my baby Max. I'm like, oh, where's Max? And then she still kept crying. So it kind of dawned on me at this point that this was not a human being drunk outside, that this is a spirit. And I hadn't done a lot of spiritual work at this point. So I'm thinking, what do they do in the movies? So I'm like, follow the light, follow, that's what they say. They say, follow the light. So I'm going to this lady, can you see the light? She's like, yes. Like, just walk towards the light. Okay. And I said, you know, someone you love will be waiting for you. And she did, and you know, I checked, are you there? Yes. And I'm like, good. And I'm thinking, please don't ever do that to me again. Please don't ever talk to me like that again. And funny enough, they haven't. Of course, I shot myself in the foot, because now I'd really like to hear more than sense. So now I'm working upon this. But it's just another amazing story of, you know, how strong, you know, voices can come forward. And it just, as we're talking now, it was as clear as that.
Amazing. I think as well that is what was good. You were able, even that time of feeling quite shocked, you're able to think of, to follow the light and to keep that very simple. I would say to anyone, just do exactly the same thing. And if they're really worried, contact someone like myself, or even yourself, or a medium who would probably able to do that clearing remotely. But they obviously were aware, your guys were aware, that you could help that lady, and she resonated with you because you were a young mother with a child or children, And I think that was just, she obviously could see a light around you, and it drew her in. And it doesn't have to be frightening. It can be just helping
No.
someone on. Just like you giving chips to a homeless person, in a way, you're doing it to someone who's kind of lost their way a bit and needs help on.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else you wanted to share with us?
Endless amounts of stories. Like when my granddad first died, I think I was about 12, and I just woke up during the night. He'd been passed over for about 2 days, I think. His dog used to sleep at the bottom of my feet. If the dog didn't sleep with him when he was with us, then the dog would sleep with me. So now he kind of turned into my dog. He was on the bottom of the bed. I'm asleep on my bed, and I felt the bed go down. I wasn't scared at all, not one little bit. I just opened my eyes because I didn't like someone's there. Saw my granddad sitting there. He smiled, and he's sitting there as though you're sitting there now, as clear as anything. Just smiled, and then just didn't just go poof, and then he just turned from being a solid mass to a little glistening glow of like fairy dust. It's hard to explain, and just kind of went. And I went back to sleep. And, I was just a child, 12, 13, and wasn't at all scared. And, he'd done it a few times throughout my early teens. I'd walked down the stairs when I lived with my mum, walked into the front room, wet myself and ran back upstairs, where I told my mum I just seen my granddad looking at my hamster, where he was bent over looking at the cage, turned round, again smiled at me. I didn't see him disappear because I'd run like crazy by that point. But I think, again, that was just the pure shock of, you don't expect your granddad to be in the front room, but my mum found it highly amusing because, all our family are quite spiritual. But it's
Yeah.
just, for me, I just felt that no, he didn't have to be by my side. I think it was a fact that he's taken interest in life around me, in the world around me. He wasn't necessarily glued to my side. He was watching, my pet at the time. That was my interest. And I
I
think,
think it's a
no,
great comfort, isn't it, that
it
they
is.
can still be part of our life even though they're not here, and also that they're not watching everything we're doing. So you don't feel you're losing your privacy. That they're very respectful of that as well, which is lovely. Thank you for sharing all that. That's absolutely fascinating, and I know that people will also maybe to relate to that, and also will find it really inspiring themselves, I think, and eye-opening, really, when they haven't had those
Yeah,
experiences, maybe to be open to it and not to be so afraid, and
yeah,
to realize that there are beautiful souls who are around, and to appreciate each other as well while we can.
that's
It's
it.
really
Definitely.
lovely. So thank you so much for sharing that, Evie.
You're welcome.
And I will look forward to speaking with you again very soon.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye bye.
I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, press the like button and subscribe. Feel free to leave any comments, any questions, and look forward to more inspirational videos.